All right, so welcome everyone. I feel like this is technically the last summer art virtual art program this week. Um, and I hope, I'm so happy that you're all here. I hope you've enjoyed your summer, although I don't feel like summer is officially over yet because we have Labor Day coming up. So hanging on to that. Um, so this is going to be done either on 8.5 by 11 inches computer paper, or you can do it on mixed media paper, 5.5 by 7.5 or 8.5. That's what I've done it on. I've done it a few ways. My original was actually on computer paper, so that is fine. It's also might be helpful, as Karen suggested. So thank you so much, Karen, for suggesting having a ruler handy so that you can make your lines straight. With that, we are going to get started. Okay, so just going to move my Okay, I'm going to move in a bit closer now. And we are going to start with the top part. So here's what we're going to do. Everything is going to be drawn first in pencil, and then we're going to talk about how we make all of those fine detailed lines with our Sharpie or whatever fine point black pen you're using. So we're going to start first with a long line across. And that's this right here. That's, part of the building. This is really part of a building. This is the window. And then we're going to draw the lines on either side. You can see that the window lines are shorter, obviously, than the top part. So let's get started with that. Okay, so here we are. So we're going to guess about how long we want to do it. And as a reminder, I always like to tell everyone, make sure that your lines are lighter, that you're drawing lighter. I always draw darker so it shows up on Zoom. This is the top line I was talking about. And then we're going to go down longwise for our window. So either side here, I think I'm going to make this a little larger, a little longer. And let's see, I want it about this long. And then you're going to come to the bottom. You're going to make another line that is slightly longer than the rectangle that you just created for the window. I'm going to fix my rectangle a bit because I can see that it is a little wobbly, which is always a great idea to use a ruler to make sure that it's pretty straight, but I'm just going to wing it. Okay, so we have the basic part finished, and now we're going to start in with creating a bit more of the window area. So we're going to come into the middle here at the top, and we're going to make the window recessed. So again, I'm going to kind of show this to you up close. So the part I'm talking about is here. Okay. So we have a bit of perspective that's happening here because the window is set back into the building. So this line is actually the line for the area around, this is the building, and then the window is sort of set back. So we have a line here and a line here. You can see on this side, this is the other side of the wall. And here as well, even though it's very thin. So let's start up here. So here we are. We're going to make a slightly turned in line. I'm going to erase some of these extra lines and start to go a little closer for you so that you can see the detail. Sorry, there's something on my screen here. There we go. And so with this, we're going to make the window a bit recessed. So first you create that slanted line. You go across and you're going to make the other slanted line here. We're going to go back over to the left, and I'm going to give you all some time to sort of do this a little more. I'm just kind of giving the instruction a bit. This line is going to go all the way down. And we're going to do the same on the right side. And for now, it's going to go all the way down. It's going to get covered up later on by the objects in front of it. But for now, we want to make sure that it's three-dimensional. And I'm just doing a little erasing so you can see my lines a little more. And I'm going to just make them a little darker there. And then once we do that, we're going to turn our attention for now down to the bottom here. And we're basically going to create this part. So sort of the sill area, the ledge area, actually, I should say. Mine, I think, is a little bit long, so I'm going to just erase the sides. Basically, we want the shelf to extend a little bit past our window. You can decide how long you want it. Here is the ledge. Again, going straight across. And make it a little darker so you can see it. And then we're also going to make it look three-dimensional, just slightly. And for now, we're just going to make this look like that. Later on, we're going to go back and we're going to create lines kind of in that fashion. And this will be semi-erased. You'll just see some lines of texture or shading for the bottom. But for now, so that you can see, what it's like, it now looks like a window so far, or at least a window ledge. Okay, let me pop the drawing back in here too, so you can compare. All right, so now we're gonna start and we're gonna add the windows. So we're gonna come over here and we're gonna create the first window. And because this is a European window, I've never been to Europe yet, but I've seen lots of pictures, lots of friends' pictures. And with these older windows, they're the ones that kind of open up. And so I created this off of one of the pictures of a window that a friend of mine showed me. I thought it was really pretty. So anyway, we're going to come here and we're going to start to add this window. We already created this part. And so first, we're going to make the line in the middle that is basically the line in between the two open window areas. So you want to try and get it halfway. Your line halfway. I feel like my line is still a little bit wobbly. Let's see. Okay. Now, once you have that line, we're now going to come over here and we're going to create sort of the window, sort of the outline of that window. Here again, what we're going to do is we're going to create the outline. And then we're definitely going to have things in front of it. But we're going to create the outline because there are parts that are peeking through. And what you want to do is you want to go almost to the bottom towards the window ledge, but then you're going to make your line across like so. And you're going to repeat that on the other side. Try and pay attention to the width of, sort of that outline of the windows. So we'll take a few seconds or so, or maybe even a minute, to look over this part, because once you draw it, you want to get it right at this point as much as you can, especially before we get into the pen. So we solve all of our sort of mistakes or issues while it's in pencil. So what I'm doing now is I'm just kind of looking at my lines. Fixing any that are not straight. Or as straight as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect. And take a look, kind of like lean back a little bit to look at your work, see if you can spot any, any discrepancies that you want to fix, and, do your best. Okay. And now we get into more of the drawing part. So we're going to come back over to this window. We're going to draw the curtains, starting at the upper corner here, kind of slightly towards it. And you're going to make kind of a triangular area. And then your curtain is going to go down. So again, you're not going to see a whole lot of the part of the curtain down here. But we're going to draw it right now because we know it's there. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you're going to need to, look and see, kind of match up where you drew this one. You can kind of match up to see if you want to take your ruler or your pencil, see if you can hold it straight. So see, I'm seeing now, I have to draw this one on the right slightly lower so it kind of matches up with where I've drawn the other one. Once you have those curtains in, we're now going to look at the folds. We're not going to worry about the detail that's happening, but we're going to start with some of the lines of the folds. Now, again, I'm going to go darker so that you can see. Your lines should be very faint. So here's one. These are actually wrinkles. So here's one wrinkle. Here's another. This one's kind of a double. So again, these are very dark the way I'm doing them. Oops. Yours should be very light. We are going to have the chance to lighten up this drawing before we go over it in the ink. We have a wrinkle, you know, we're now going to start to have wrinkles coming from the middle part here where the curtain is gathered. So here's another one up here. And one kind of at the top in the corner or to the left of the corner. Here is I'm going to make that darker so you can see. And we have another wrinkle. We're going to go over to the right side and we're going to put the wrinkles in there. I'm going to make my curtain just a little bit thicker here for that one. And now we've got our curtains. Give everyone a little bit of time. You know, and again, your curtains don't have to look exactly like mine. You know, we're also going to have a little bit of some kind of a curvy area here, but we're going to draw that in with pen later on just to make it look like the curtain is billowing a little more. And if you have less wrinkles, it's okay. If you've got more wrinkles, that's okay too. All right. So now we're going to move down to the plants.
I have a lot of wrinkles.
I'm getting them too, Michael. It is the benefit.
Beat me to it.
That's great. Well, these curtains are going to have more. I promise. I know. So funny. It's great. So now we're going to start drawing the pots here. And so we're going to come over here to the left. What we're going to do first is we're actually going to draw each of the pots. Then we're going to go back and we're going to add all the leaves. I sort of made up, again, I kind of made up this plant on the left. I think this plant on the right is real. I tend to make up plants also from my memory. So I think this one's real. I'm not sure what this one on the left is, and the one on the right, I kind of did in between. I kind of did this plant, but I didn't add the stripes, but I feel like it looks like a plant that somebody would have. So, okay. I'm now going to go a lot closer so that you're really able to see the detail here. And we're going to start again down here to the left. So the pot is going to be kind of on the edge here. So I'm going to draw this darker so that you're going to be able to see. So this is the pot. I am drawing over, basically drawing over what we drew. And we're going to erase it. Make my pot a little bigger here. And I'm going to start erasing the curtain behind it so that now the pot is in front. So if you look at the pot, it is a bit wider at the top, and then it gets a little bit, kind of goes inward at the bottom, slightly curved there. You know, I was picturing like terracotta pots. We have another smaller one. Again, curving the lid area, the top area, to make it appear like it's round. And you can erase lines as you go, the lines that are kind of, you know, interrupting. So if it's helpful to do that. Here's the next pot here. You can see this one is, you know, really close to the bigger pot here. Makes it look more realistic. There's that one. And then we have a final one over here on the right side, and this is our biggest pot. So we're gonna go up a little, and it's gonna break the border on the right side. Same thing. Your pot starts out, you know, the lines are wider, and then as you go towards the bottom, they go slightly inward. And now I'm going to erase the curtains and the window lines so that now the pot is in front. And make this one a little bit bigger. Double check all of your lines at this point so that it doesn't look like you have any wobbly pots. Again, you know, if it's
I
not
mean,
perfect, it's okay.
okay.
Hi,
Hi, looks
Renee.
beautiful.
Hello. So good to see you.
You too.
Yay. You know, if you want to add some designs to your pots, you can do that too. But we're gonna now, you know, start to add the detail for the leaves. And then our final parts will be going upward at the top in order to add the, you know, brick areas. And then we'll finally start to, you know, break out our pen. But it's also helpful if you have another piece of paper. You know, it can be just a thin piece of paper, just so we can practice our line work when we get to that point. Because I want to talk a little bit about, you know, using pen and, you know, putting on a little bit of pressure, and then also very, you know, light, you know, making very light pressure when we get to all of these very fine lines. But I will mention that again once we get to or finish the brick area in pencil. Okay, so now we're going to go and create the plants. So again, I'm just going to kind of show this up close. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You can add flowers if you want. We're going to come here and we're going to make some, you know, some dangly kind of lines happening, and then we're going to draw leaf shapes on them. So let's get started with that. So again, I'm gonna, I want to make some of these kind of extending outward and then create sort of falling leaf shapes like so. And again, everyone's is going to look different because we are, making these shapes. I mean, it's going to look completely different from my original. I'm okay with that. Again, you just want these leaf shapes. We're going to go up a bit. Can make some leaves a little bit to the side, and they're small. So you're going to make, a bunch. You're going to put them a bit over the curtains. We're also going to be doing some background stuff to around the curtains. When you feel ready, you can start to create a little bit of leaves for the next one, but we've got some kind of tall, thin branches happening here too. Or not branches, sorry. Leaves. I sometimes like to go back when I'm using the pen and, I'll add more. Let's see, got one here. That, just kind of make them coming from the inside of the pot, and then, you can go back and make designs on some of them, but I like to do that with the pen. I actually did do it with the pen when I drew it originally. And then at this point, you can, kind of erase some of the curtain lines and window lines as much as you can see, so that the leaves now and the pots and the plants are in front. And at this point, you can also then see, maybe I want to add some. I'm going to add another one up here that's kind of long. Wiggly here. Do one more here. You can kind of fill it in. And then we're gonna now venture up top toward our bricks. And so we have that elongated line that is at the top of our window. Right underneath that line, we're going to draw what looks like kind of the shape of bricks. And I'm going to go darker with this. Again, all of your lines should be very light. So I'm going right up against the top part. Let's see. I need to kind of inward. So you see how this one I left a little bit of space. For the brick. And I'm adding just like kind of like the hint of bricks here. And we're going to talk a little more about that too. But we're going to keep going across here. We've got some detail happening right here. Sorry, I think my camera's a little tilted. There we go. We're going to jump upward. And we're going to start to now on the left, kind of create another line across. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be kind of wiggly and then get slightly bigger across. And when we get to the right side, it's going to bend a bit. And this is another brick with kind of a line at the bottom for now. And we're going to start piling on our bricks. And again, this does not have to look exactly like mine. This part is just, we're adding, oops, we're kind of adding the details. So we're going to go back here. This is an old building. So I'm adding kind of a bit of a broken brick right here. Little piece right here. I'm adding some broken bricks. Not worrying about the middle right now. Some of the bricks are attached to each other. Kind of skipped in the middle here. We'll go back to it, but I'm adding some of these elongated, you know, kind of broken bricks where they're oddly shaped. They're not shaped the same, for sure. And that's the general outline to our bricks. Now I like to kind of lighten up my lines a little bit. You know, I drew a little darker, so I'm going to just go over everything with my gray eraser here, just real quickly. I'm just lightening up my lines. I tend to do that at the end as well after I apply the ink to kind of clean up any pencil lines that are left over. So you can do that. And then when you have a chance, you want to grab a piece of scrap paper so that we can do just a little bit of practicing with our pen before we get started. Everyone a little bit of time. Okay. All right. So looking at these strokes, You can see we have ones that are close together and are going vertical. If you look at the curtain lines, in order to make the shadows, we make those very light and horizontal. We also have horizontal lines that are closer together and darker for the shadowing of the wall. You know, that's the concrete wall there that's sticking out since the window is recessed. And then we've got some darker line work here, and then some lighter line work throughout to indicate that, you know, the windows are a little old, they might be a little scuffed up, sort of thing. So we're gonna just practice our lines for all of that. So for instance, if we're looking at the kind of line work for our curtain, right? So here's our curtain. Here's our window. Say here are our original lines, right? And we're going to be going over all of this in the ink. But in order to make our lines very light, we're going to kind of hover over our paper, and we're going to very lightly do that. We'll do some here, very lightly. Make one here. You know what? I'm just going to grab something real quick. I think I grabbed the wrong Sharpie. Yep. Yep, this one makes a little bit lighter. Lighter lines. You kind of want your lines to be very light, like so. So you just kind of want to practice those lines, making lines that are darker, closer together, and then really whisper lines. I call them whisper lines. These are going to be some of the lines that we create for inside the window. You can go over lines to make them darker. And then I'm just going to kind of show you too. The lines for, you know, kind of just to give you an idea of what we're going to be doing. I'll be taking you through this step by step, but also the lines for the pots. You know, you're going to make certain parts a little bit darker, and you do that by going over the part in pen. And then again, making these really light lines across. And if you're not sure the pressure that you need to do, you might want to start off with it light and then go back and go darker. As you can see here, I'm kind of building up the shadow right underneath where the lip is for the pot. And so you go over that a few times, you know, and then that's when you're gonna, you know, we made our leaves here. You can start to kind of color in some of your leaves. And again, we're going to go over this, but just kind of wanted to give you the idea. Also, when we go into the recessed area of the concrete, same thing. We're going to be doing lines across, short lines, almost like broken lines. We're going to go back over them. And it's a little darker up top. So we're going to go over those lines a bit more. And see I'm kind of shading a bit. And then I get a little lighter. Like so, but now it looks like the top part is darker. Look at this recessed part. We're going to add a little more dark towards the bottom here. So I'm going a little bit faster, but you want to kind of take your time. It's easier if you kind of do individual lines and, build it up. And obviously, I'm just kind of showing you a little bit of line work for also the brickwork. Here again, I'm doing some whisper lines for the bricks, but going over the kind of the outline of some of the bricks and then going really light. I'm just going to show this up close. So again, that's a little bit quick, but just to kind of give you an idea. So again, if you want to like practice, especially the light lines, I find people have a lot of trouble with making kind of the light lines. It's kind of like fur when you're making the light lines. Like if you ever make fur, draw fur on an animal, you can see here, again, it's very kind of wispy. But I just kind of made fur just from making these lines together. But it's just getting you used to making the lines very light. You kind of want to, hover on around your paper and then, almost like you're lifting your, kind of lifting your hand up. It's not as dramatic as I'm doing, but you get the idea. And so with that, we're going to get started. We're going to do the dark parts first, because again, it's easier to do. Yeah, you can use a pen. Yeah, if anybody doesn't have, black ink like this, you can absolutely use a ballpoint pen for sure. That actually might be easier because it's a bit more of a finer ink. So you could do that too. You could even do it in blue if you don't have black. So that might actually be a little easier. So yeah, you can use that for sure. Thanks for that question, Sydney. But we're going to get started with starting to outline a bit of the darker parts. And so we're going to start at the top. And so we're going to start to outline this top part across the window. And I'm kind of wiggling my line there. There we go. I'm going to adjust the light now. Wiggling my line. And then I'm going to start to wiggle more of the outside line here across. Kind of across. I'm going to do a little outlining here. So again, these are the parts that we're going to kind of go over that are a little bit darker. These are the brick areas. So we're kind of outlining the brick areas. least parts of them. Like going across here, you know, underneath the bricks. So that's kind of the first part that we want to add the dark parts to. And we're going to keep going here. We're going to outline the window areas. So the recessed part. And again, if you're not too sure, you can kind of go lighter at first. Like so. We're going to go down the left side. So I just went down the left side. I'm going to slow down a little bit just in case anybody needs some time to catch up. So the parts that you see darker, obviously, I've just gone over those using my black pen. And we're going to keep going here. So we're also going to go down the left side. Here we are, kind of outlining the other part of the window. We're kind of staying on the left side so far, except we did the top part of the recessed area of the building. We just did the left side of the line here. We're going to do kind of in the middle here, but it's not going to be, this line is going to be a little more choppy. You see that I'm kind of like lifting my line up, my pen. I'm also making sure that, you know, I can still go back and make this darker, but for now we're going to do it kind of light. And then we're going to now do the outlining of the windows, the window areas. Sort of the parts where the window panes are going to happen. You know, and just pay attention to where your plants are falling, you know, because now as we're getting downward, we're going to run into our plants. We haven't outlined those yet. We're also going to make sure to go back to the left and outline the windows on the left, the window on the left side. I kind of started you off on the right side. So when you have a chance, you want to go over to the left side as well. And I'm going to let everybody do a little catching up since I kind of went fast there. Okay. We're going to now go to the curtains. We're going to outline the outside outline of the curtains. So kind of like this. So I did the first one. And I just did the second one. So the outside, the outline. So not the wrinkles yet. And we're going to do the pots. This is the outside of the pots. All three. And when you're ready, we're going to do the ledge as well, not the shadow part underneath. Not yet. Okay. Now we're going to start in with now doing a combination. One is kind of highlight the parts that we were going to do a little bit darker. We're still going to be adding darker lines, but now we're going to add some of the lighter lines and the darker lines. So just depending. We're going to come up to the brick. And if you need to kind of, grab your little practice part here and just again, real quickly kind of practice your lines. You can do that. Get used to making some light kind of wispy lines. That's what we're going to start with. And we're going to start on the brick up here. And basically what we're going to do, we're going to follow this line around that we created. But basically we're going to go really light. So basically what's going to happen is, if you want to watch me first, I'm kind of starting off against the paper with my pen against the paper, and then I'm going to lighten up. And I'm almost going to like dot it. Matter of fact, I'm going to erase my pencil line so you can see. So this now is ink. Right? Do you see how I started to kind of dot it? So we're talking about that, with the bricks. And I'm going to go really close in now since we're into the detail. So again, now we're going to come over here and we're going to start to build up a little bit of this corner. And I'm doing a combination now. I'm kind of going in and I'm kind of shading almost with my pen. This pen is also running out, I realize. Probably need to get a new one, but it definitely helps me when I need to do the lighter stuff. So I'm now going into this brick. And I'm just adding some darker spots, doing a little outlining, and then I'm doing a little bit of shading. I'm going to do the same to the other brick, but what makes the bricks look realistic is you kind of go in the corners and have them be a little bit darker. And then you can add some very light kind of, again, kind of dotted lines near the top part. And then some sort of little lines inside that brick. So I'm just kind of showing you the detail on those. And you kind of want to repeat that process, you kind of make the middle part here, because it looks like what the dark part is doing for the brick is it looks like it's kind of recessed, kind of popping out from the concrete, because there'd be a shadow. And then the little lines are sort of the, the kind of the holes in the brick material. So we're going all the way across here at the top. And we've got some little bit of line work in this section here. So I'm just going to point to it. And we did a whole bunch of sort of things with our pen, just going right across here. So I'm just going to let everybody catch up. And we're going to be working that way throughout the rest of the drawing. We're going to be kind of switching up the line work, the direction of the lines, the pressure that we're applying. And so now we're going to come over here and we're going to get a little bit lighter. So again, kind of very light lines. So add a little bit of line here. We're going to go back to the left here, and we're going to start to fill in this middle area because there's some sort of, oops, sorry, I went a little too close to my camera and it fuzzed, got a little fuzzy on me. Coming back over here now to this brick in particular, doing a little bit of kind of outline. And then we're going to make some darker lines, vertical lines. Maybe adding a little bit of some kind of coloring in to make it a little darker. And then you're going to start to make, as you go over to the right side, some really light lines just to indicate that the wood is kind of, it's kind of older here, and so I'm just kind of showing again the difference. You can go back and make some parts a little darker by going over it. So it's really, right above here, the window. Thanks, Megan. I hope you send your beautiful work. Now we're going to get into these bricks as well. We just did sort of this area above the window, and we've got these bricks that are attached. Again, this is sort of a light We go back and forth between a little bit of a darker line toward the corners, and then we kind of skip some space, but we still make it look like that it's a brick. And then we're going to come up top of each of those little bricks. These little portions are bricks, and you create some light shading using up and down strokes. So again, these are kind of little bricks there. We kind of have a few, a piece of a brick kind of over on the right. And some shading underneath the other one. And I'm going to point to the sections that I just did. Oh, wow. Michael, that looks amazing. Oh my gosh. Michael's getting into you're getting into the wrinkle part. You're getting into, that's awesome. Yeah. And, Michael's given a good example too. He's kind of, following a bit of this, but he's also kind of thrown in his own flair. I love it. You guys can do it too. If you want to do cross hatching at the top here, cross hatching, if you're not familiar. So what I mean is, you make it darker in the sense of, sorry, I'm just going to grab this other piece. Cross hatching would be like if I started doing lines across, right? And then in order to make it darker, I cross over those lines, maybe even just in one part, cross over again to make it darker. Basically, I'm building up that area to make it look like it's kind of shadowed in this part. And then maybe I, make it really dark here in the corner, just a little bit. So you can do something like that too. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine. But let's continue, because as I talked about that, we're now going to go across the top part here, and we're going to make some dark lines going across. So we're in this section. Sorry, I'm going to try and move my hand so you can see. We're building up the shading in this section. And so we start off with vertical lines that are kind of scratchy. They're not all the way across. It's not a continuous line all the way across. And then you go back and start to do more of those lines on top of each other, specifically at the top and the corners. And sort of right up against the top parts. So I'm kind of now scribbling a little in the corners for shading. We're also going to go down the left side, basically down this side of the window. And then also on the right side, because again, this is kind of the recessed part of the window. And we're going to change direction of our lines. So here I am on the left, and the lines are now going slanted all the way down. And I'm leaving some space open as I go further down. Sometimes I bunch my lines together. And then when I get down toward the pot, I change the direction to go vertical. And I get a little bit darker in between the pots. So I just did the left side. You can build up a little bit of shading again by going over that area. And you can even change, you can change direction. So I just did that in between these two pots. And I'm going to go over here on down the right side now. Change direction for the lines. And as I go down toward the pots, I leave some of the white. I want to make sure to get in between the potted plants. And then just to add a little more before we, really start to finish off in the lighter lines, we're going to now do the darker lines that happen in the window areas between the curtains. So this is where, you can now start to make those lines, those vertical lines, and you're going to kind of bunch them together. Thanks, Jade. I hope you send your drawing in. So cool. So here I am, where you layer as you go down. Remember to leave room for your kind of pots, the leaves. If you want, you can start to kind of outline those leaves before you kind of finish up. Decided to kind of do that right now so that as I go down, I don't accidentally put a line on top of a leaf or a plant. It gets a little tricky as you're getting down towards the pots. You also want to keep in mind, where the outside of the window pane is. And then you're going to double back and you're going to start to darken up your lines. So you're going to go again. And the thing that's really going to make it look good is you're going to kind of outline along kind of the edge of the curtains. And you're going to get a little darker in back of your pots, in back of your potted plants here. So then you can kind of go back up, darken up certain areas as well. And you're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. This part takes a little while, but we're almost finished with all of these other lines, because the rest is really just these lighter applications of lines. And on the right side, again, you do the same thing. It's a little bit, I feel like it's a little bit easier on the right side because you only have the one plant. So I do like to go in at this point and kind of outline the leaves for that plant. So I just took some time and did that. And then remember to outline the curtain area. And I like to sometimes add just a little extra curtain area here, kind of a little bit of a ripple. And then start adding, layering those lines in that area. This part takes the longest. It's the, making of the window part. If everybody's okay, we'll just go another 5 more minutes if that's okay, Karen. Rebecca, thank you. Sometimes these drawings take a little longer than I anticipate, and sometimes they take a little shorter. Oh my God, Michael, that looks amazing. Wow, that is beautiful. Beautiful,
Almost as good as yours.
It is as good as mine. Absolutely. That is beautiful. You do great pen work. Some people are just naturals with pen. I never was. I have to really work at it. That looks beautiful. And again, you're going to go over it in the spots that you want a little bit darker. It's usually right at the top of toward the curtain area, and then at the bottom a little bit. Isn't it funny how we all have natural inclinations when we do, even when we do things, even besides art. But I know in art, there's certain things that come more natural to me and others that I really have to work at. And I'm like watercolor, for instance, is not always my forte. I feel like I do okay, but there are so many watercolor artists that I admire. And I always say maybe one day when I'm retired, I'll really sit down and see if I can master it a bit more. And then you're going to go in and start to do the curtains too. And that, again, you're still going to use wispy lines for the wrinkles. You're going to go a little bit darker in some spots. But then when you go back, again, for the shading, you're going to go really light, like we talked about. And again, you can always go back and make parts darker, like for instance, the original wrinkle. You make that just a little bit darker, going back over it. So taking care now of the wrinkles in the curtains. The shading. The shading as you get towards the bottom area, towards your plants, especially on the left side, you can do a little bit of line work. But we're also going to, get to more of that shading as we get toward the plants. I always like to kind of leave my pen drawings for a little bit too, and I usually go back later, take a look and see what needs a little darkening up. I always tend to be lighter because it's much easier to go back and make things darker in pen, but not so much. It's hard to retract those dark areas once you've laid it down. So I tend to go lighter at first. And when you're ready, you're going to start outlining your plants. This is where you can get kind of crazy and creative with your pen, outlining and then going back and adding some darker areas to the individual leaves and doing that line shading, right, that we have in other areas with the plants on the left. So even inside each of those, longer plants, the longer one that's happening here on the left, you can use light shading lines, because we're going to be doing that over on the one on the right, but we only add a little bit so that we get the texture of that plant. And then of course you're going to be adding, very light, wispy, curved lines for the pots. So this is everything that we've been kind of learning in the last hour or so. And you're now applying it to these different areas. Now to the pot areas here. Your lines are best curved on the pots because it really makes it look like, that they have volume. And I love doing the line work on this last plant. I'm going to show it up close. Your lines start to go in another direction, vertical, but you leave space. You leave the white of the paper there. And then let's not forget, before we do our final area down here, let's not forget some of these little kind of lines that are happening now on the window, kind of, the window areas. Little lines that are kind of making it look old. Like the paint is sort of wearing off a little, maybe. especially at the top of each window area. You know, varying your lines to being a little bit longer, to being a little shorter. And don't forget, you know, the window areas at the bottom as well. You can do a bit of shading since they're at the bottom. And then we're finally going to do the same to the ledge. Doing a varying of the lines. Kind of outlining until we get to underneath where we make it kind of scribbly and right across. Broken up lines again, but this way in a horizontal direction. You know, and then again, you can go back. You want to make it darker under the ledge because that's where the shadow would be, or at least the darkest part of the shadow. And then you get lighter as you go down just a little bit underneath. Oh, wow, Michael. That is our European window drawing. I'm going to remove my spotlight. And I'm also going to, if you are ready, you can also unmute. I'm going to stop the recording here.